One of my favorite platforms of all time is the Commodore 64. It doesn't compare to anything, but we'll talk about my fascination with the Commodore 64 some other time. Now, there's two things I absolutely adored growing up. It was Sonic and Commodore 64. And the Sonic game for the Commodore 64 just never came out. Well, in December 2021, finally a fan-made port of the Sega Saturn Sonic 1 was released for the Commodore 64. And the game is simply incredible. It quickly became one of my favorite Sonic games that I still play regularly to this day on both real hardware and on my emulation devices. It's just a game that I always go to, as a pick-up and play experience. It's just incredible. So just what makes this port so special? Well, for one, it has incredible controls. They're very tight, they're very precise, so it's a joy to play even on a Commodore 64. Second, it actually makes some improvements from the original. For example, you can safely fall down in the jungle level and you don't die as soon as you fall down and touch the bottom edge of the screen. Now, this does have some problems. Some platforms that should respawn do not. However, for the most part, it's actually a very useful feature. Another thing is that the second level of the bridge zone is not an auto-scroller. Like in the original, I personally never liked the auto-scrolling part of that level, even though I really love the bridge zone and its music. Speaking of music, this is where the Commodore 64 version truly shines. The music, thanks to the Commodore 64's audio chip, is absolutely phenomenal. Now, if you thought that Master System melodies sounded good, you gotta hear it on the Commodore 64. They're just incredible. That Commodore 64 vibe, that's irreplaceable. There's nothing else like it. Visually, the game goes beyond what is supposed to be possible on the Commodore 64, and yet here we are. It plays perfectly fine on real hardware, although it does require more RAM, but that shouldn't be a problem because if you have a device such as the Ultimate 2 Plus, which is an FPGA emulator for the C64's floppy drive and cartridge drive, tape drive, that actually comes with RAM upgrades, so that's a non-issue at all. All levels from the Master System version have been fully intact, bonus levels have been fully intact, there's vertical scrolling, there's horizontal scrolling, the game is incredible, the game pushes the Commodore 64 beyond its limits, it's just that good. Now, this is very important to understand, but unlike Nintendo, who in their Infinite Grid DMCA'd a phenomenal Super Mario 1 port to the Commodore 64 a few years back, Sega never cared about this release. Because they don't mind when fans create Sonic games as long as the game is not for profit, so that's why we're not gonna get a physical release of this masterpiece. However, Sega has no issues with this release and it can be freely downloaded, it's legal and it's incredible. Even if you don't have a Commodore 64, you can emulate the Commodore 64 almost perfectly with Vice 64, so I suggest that you play this on whatever device that you use for emulation. It can be one of those handheld games, it can be PC, whatever you use. It's gonna run perfectly fine. And if you're a Sonic fan, this is very much worth your time and you should definitely check it out.